I want to sort of give some context to what I'm going to say by talking about, standard piece of folk wisdom. People say that if you give someone a fish, they'll eat for a day. And if you teach someone to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. And we're sort of accustomed to seeing the sense to that. What I want to tell you tonight is that turns out to be false. That there are a lot of people whose problems cannot be solved with fishing lessons. Because if someone knows how to fish but doesn't have a fishing rod or a net, their problem hasn't been solved. If someone knows how to fish but is in such poor health that they can't go fishing every day, their problem hasn't been solved. If someone knows how to fish but doesn't have enough optimism in their life to make the decision to go out there and catch a fish, their problem hasn't been solved. So I'm going to be talking tonight about an approach to extreme poverty that takes that as its perspective. Addressing extreme poverty is more than giving a person a fish. It asks for us to do more than teaching someone to fish, but it asks us to fundamentally change someone's life, change who she is. And so the program that I'm working with right now is an effort to do that, and to this point, it's still young. To this point, it's been, as near as we can tell, very, very effective. All right? I need 4 volunteers. I would rather have, for reasons that will become obvious, I would rather have women. I make sure you talk louder. So when I call the number on the top of the sheet, will you just read that text out loud and insert your name in the blank? So could we have number 1, please?
Yeah. My name is Allison. I live in Bel Air, a hilly rural area south of Chambeau Market, near the center of Boucan-Calais. I have a small straw-roofed house where I live with my mother and my 9 children. None of my children are in school. There is simply no money to send them with. My husband, the father of all my children, died this past year. He drowned while hiking across a nearby river on his way home from a soccer match. Even before he died, our life was difficult. He worked hard, but we had little land of our own. He was left to sharecropping, receiving 1/3 of the harvest on the land that he worked. Or he would hire himself out as a day laborer when he could, earning 50 gourds a day, or about $1.25. I never earned any money myself. Since his death, things have only gotten worse. I'd like to start a business, but I have no money to start one with. I own no animals and hardly any land. One of my daughters received a chicken from her godmother, but a neighbor's child threw a rock at it and broke its leg. He meant no harm. He just wasn't thinking. I wish his family had paid me for the loss, but they didn't. During autumn, I earn a few dollars a week by hiking into the hills and cutting guan. It's like a little palm tree. I can dry the leaves, then sell them tied in bunches. A woman walks up from down in Boucan-Calais to buy what I have. She sells the guan to weavers who make ropes, mats, or sacks. I could make more money myself, but I don't know how to weave. All I can do is collect and sell the unprepared guan. The buyer comes about once a week. In a good week, I can earn 200 gourds, about $5. That's enough to buy 7 or 8 cups of rice. That's not a lot for a family of 11.
All right. The program that I'm going to talk to you tonight, thank you, is called Shimer la vie meilleure. It means the pathway to a better life. And was established in Haiti by an organization called Foncosé. Foncosé is a Haitian poverty relief institution. Foncosé is short for Fondation Colle les Épaules. The fondation part is clear, right? Colle les Épaules means to stick shoulders together. So sometimes in English we say it's the Shoulder to Shoulder Foundation. It was established in 1994 by a Haitian priest, a Catholic priest, who saw that the growth of political democracy in the early 90s was being undermined by the fact that the vast majority of Haitians, particularly Haitian women, had no way to participate in the democratization of the economy. And he felt that until the economy became more democratic, that political democracy could never become real. So we established Foncosé as what is generally called an MFI, a microfinance institution. That is an institution that uses microcredit and other financial services, like a bank, to help people develop wealth, help particularly the poor develop wealth. Now, do any of you, what do you know about microcredit and microfinance?
I've heard the Guardian Bank in India.
The Grameen in Bangladesh.
Oh, it's in Bangladesh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the bank started by Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner. Is there other stuff that you know?
Yeah, just related to that, in that I've heard sometimes it can cause problems by resources becoming misallocated. Like in an attempt to do that, like it'll pool a lot of money to somebody at the bottom, and I don't know. I've heard there's some problems with it related to that.
There are some problems with it. There's a lot we can talk about the kind of problems they have. But the key to microcredit, which is sort of the core of microfinance, is that it uses very small loans to enable women, it's almost always women, to develop their own businesses. The feeling is that rather than giving them aid or the more traditional approaches to poverty alleviation, if you help a woman gain access to the resources she needs to work her own way and her family's way out of poverty, you have a much better chance of making a long-term impact. And as a matter of fact, it's been, though there are lots of problems that have emerged in it's now 30 or 40 years old, and so as you'd expect, nothing is magic. It's been very successful. A lot of people have moved out of poverty, and so on the whole, we think it's a good thing. We at Foncosé, we use it as the core of our strategy to help eliminate poverty in Haiti. So Foncosé has about 50,000 Haitian women who have small loans. That's more than all the formal banks in Haiti combined. So it's a major undertaking. But after about 7 or 8 years of its history, that is in the early 2000s, Foncosé increasingly noticed that it was not doing what it really wanted to be doing. That is, that there were lots of people that microcredit was not helping. The reality is that there are people too poor for microcredit. It's a simple fact. A woman who takes out a loan and then has to make a choice at some point between repaying that loan or feeding a hungry child is going to feed the child. At least you hope she will. If she doesn't make that choice, that's another kind of problem. But there are people whose families are so poor that creating an expectation that they'll repay stuff that you give them is simply unrealistic. You can't do it. And in fact, you create problems for her if you do it anyway. So Fonds Causes started to ask itself, doesn't there have to be a different way to address these poorest families? Because until we can say we're helping the poorest families, we're not going to be satisfied that we're actually working towards the eradication of poverty. You don't want to have the feeling, it's nice that the people that are somewhat poor are moving up, but you don't want to give up on serving the poorest of the poor. And so Fonds Causes management, you don't want to create something that already exists. So Fonds Causes management went into research mode, looked around the world at the different major organizations involved in microfinance, and they found the program they thought they were looking for. The country that is the birthplace of microfinance and the world's key microfinance laboratory is Bangladesh. That's where Grameen is, the original microfinance institution. That's where BRAC is, the world's largest NGO with something like 130,000 employees. And there are 2 or 3 other very large organizations. There are millions and millions of women in Bangladesh who have microfinance loans. And both Grameen and BRAC developed approaches, independent of one another, to address these poorest of the poor. Fonds Causes, my institution, decided that it liked the approach that BRAC was taking. And so we became part of an international network of 7 or 8 microfinance institutions that decided to attempt to replicate the program that had been established by BRAC. We sent Fonds Causes staff to Bangladesh in 2006 to be trained in the program. And then this last summer, when we were ready to scale up the program, make it much larger, a team of us, myself included, was sent to Bangladesh for second training by BRAC. So could we have number 2, please?
They say that the husband is the master of the house, but when the man's laid up, you're up the creek. My name is Jan, and my husband has been nearly paralyzed with back pain since early last summer. So I've been left to fend for myself and for 6 of our kids. We sent the 7th to live with a neighbor who has a home in Port-au-Prince. Before my husband became sick, things were looking up. He gave me a crop of sweet potatoes to sell after last year's harvest. It was big enough that I could buy a horse with the money I made. I even had some money left over to start a small commerce. A neighbor lent me another 5,000 gourds, about $125, and I was in business. Then one day in late December, he came home with nice New Year's clothes for all the kids. But he wasn't feeling well, and he asked to lie down. Since then, he's gotten steadily worse. Now he can't even get up without help. Someone sits behind him as a brace if he wants to sit up. Then the horse died, and the neighbor needed the 5,000 gourds back. I still had 1,500 gourds. I would hike to the market with that money to buy rice, oil, kerosene, and bouillon cubes. I could always sell them at a profit, but my husband's illness and the need to feed the kids ate up what was left of my business. But a woman always has something cooking. These days, I hike into the hills to cut guan, which I dry and sell to buyers who come by once a week. I can make $5 or $6 in a good week as long as the guan lasts. My sister-in-law sometimes sends food to help feed the kids. My oldest son's godmother sends him to school, though he's the only one of my children who can go. I don't know what I'll do when the guan season is over, and I'm worried about my husband. If he could even sit up or just go to the bathroom by himself, you'd have hope that he might be able to work again someday.
Thanks. So, the first thing you need to do if you make a commitment to serving the poorest of the poor is to find them, right? You need to identify who it is in the communities you're going to work in that really needs a program a special program to get out of poverty. And it turns out it's complicated because you're not from a community. You come into the community as a stranger. People in the community have a suspicion that there might be resources that are connected with you. That is, you might be bringing new resources into the community, and they have an interest in directing them in certain directions, either to themselves or to family members. So it's very hard to get to the people that you need. So the first thing we do is we take 2 or 3 months just selecting families that are going to participate in this program. And it's a 3-step process. The first part of the process is called participatory wealth ranking. What we do is we go into the community and hold a community-wide meeting. We don't say what the meeting's about. We simply say it's an informational meeting, that we're doing field research, and we need people's participation. We promise to offer a little snack, and so a fair number of people come. Some just out of curiosity, some because they like the snack, some because they think, well, here's some strangers coming in, maybe they're bringing something that's I should be trying to get. And what we do is we have them trace a map of their community on the ground. A map that places every household in the community in its position. And we create cards for each household that list the name of the woman adult and other basic information. Then we take those cards and what we say is this: not all households are equal. Some are wealthier than others. So if you were to, I'm talking to the community members now. Here we have Donna's card. Here we have Lori's card. Which of those 2 families is better off? And there might be some discussion. They might say, oh, they're about the same. But if they're different, we put them in 2 different piles. If they're the same, we ask for a 3rd card, and we say, okay, is her family better off or worse off than those 2 families? And what we try to do is create 4 to 6 piles of what we call wealth ranks, from the wealthiest members of the community to the least wealthy. And we have a little discussion then about what the criteria turn out to be for that community. So maybe in our community, the wealthiest ones are the ones who can send their children to school in New York. A sign of wealth is that you can send your kid to high school or college in New York. Maybe the next ones down are the ones that have a car or 2 cars. But you try and get a community-wide consensus as to the local criteria for wealth. Then we take that pile of cards and we take the bottom 2 piles. The pile for the poorest people, the poorest families, and the pile for the second poorest families, and our staff people take them and start doing home visits. They go to every home and they're looking for information. Detailed information that come out in surveys about how people live, and very importantly, how they eat, how much they eat and how often. And our staff members use those surveys to make recommendations to the program management as to which families are the very poorest and which families are slightly better off enough that they could be served by credit. That's our basic distinction. Is your family one that could benefit from credit, or is it too poor to benefit from credit? Once we make that distinction, we take the last pile, the families that have been verified as being unqualified for credit, and the program's management team goes in and does individual home interviews with each of those families. So my staff members will have filled out forms for maybe 20 families in an area. They'll give me 10 of them that they think are qualified for the program, and then I'll go out in the field and I'll visit those 10 homes, and I'll have long conversations with the woman who leads the household. And I will try and judge, through just talking with her, whether indeed she might be able to manage with credit, or whether she needs our program. So it's a long selection process. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, going from the community meeting to the basic field worker staff doing surveys, to a long private interview with a part of the team, management team. And someone that goes through those 3 steps can then be selected to be part of the program. So, can we have number 3, please?
My name is Sixangani. I don't remember my parents. They died when I was very young. I grew up at my aunt's house, but when I started to get older, I saw that I wasn't getting anywhere there. So I left her house and started wandering around the other parts of Bukankare. That's when I met Don and his wife. They have a big family now, but back then only a couple of their oldest children had been born, so I moved in. They were glad to have someone to help around the house. They gave me food to eat and a place to stay. I did chores. 8 years ago I became pregnant. I loved my little boy. The boy's father showed no interest in him, so at first we both stayed with Don and his family. But about a year ago, Don said he couldn't keep feeding both of us. I wish I could keep him with me, but I have no way to take care of him. I have nothing. So I had to send him away to live with my aunt. I think of him as I watch Don's kids and grandkids.
Thanks. Okay, so we've selected people to be part of the program. Now, what we haven't said yet, is the heart of the matter, right? What do we do? That is, I started by saying you have to do more than give people fish. You have to do more than teach them how to fish. Well, okay, here's where the rubber hits the road. What do you do? Our program has 5 key elements. There are other things sort of on the periphery of it that have various kinds of importance as well, but there are 5 key elements. One is, we start by inviting the women to classroom training in income generating activities of their choice. So we have a case manager. That's what we call our staff. They're essentially social workers. We have a case manager that goes out to Mary's house, and we'll have a sit-down conversation with her where they talk about Mary's life, and they try and identify 2 income-generating activities that would work for her. So the basic income-generating activities we focus on are 3 different kinds of animal husbandry: goats, pigs, and fowl, and small commerce. So we try and help a woman decide which 2 of those 4 activities might work for her circumstances. And then we invite her to 3 days of classroom training in managing each of those activities. So if Joan chooses goats, which are the most popular option, and small commerce, she'll then get 3 days of training in goat rearing, in goat management as a business, and 3 days of training in managing a small commerce. Then we will actually give her as a gift, no strings attached, the assets that she needs to start those activities. So if she chooses goat rearing, she'll get either 2 or 3 goats, depending on what her second choice is. If she chooses small commerce, we will take her to the market, purchase, let's see, about a little less than $40 worth of merchandise that she chooses, and allow her to start a commerce with that merchandise. If she chooses fowl, she gets a special hybrid cock, 10 chickens, and 2 turkeys, a pair of young turkeys. And so they don't just get the learning, they get the stuff they need to make those businesses happen. But there's a lot of experience that shows that that's not enough, because they're not used to doing something like managing a business. And to think that 3 days of classroom experience for someone who's never been in a classroom before, because almost none of them know how to read, almost none of them have ever been to school, you know, that's suddenly going to give knowledge that will save a family's life, it would be absurd. So that's when our real work starts. We visit them, we send a case manager, a social worker, to see them once a week for 18 months. Spend a minimum of half an hour talking to the woman and doing a couple different things. So the 3rd major component of our program is long-term consistent accompaniment. Every one of our families has a case manager. When that case manager comes to a woman's house, he or she does a couple different things. They ask them how things are going. Just have a little chat about, you know, are the kids okay? Is your health good? And then just general stuff that even politeness would require. They teach her how to write her name. Almost none of our women could sign their names when they joined the program, even so much as sign their name. So it's very embarrassing to them that when they have to sign something, they do it with a thumbprint. So we teach them to sign their name, and one of the things that helps them feel good about themselves early in the program is when we stop allowing them to use their thumbprint to sign receipts and things. Then we go through a detailed discussion of their assets. How are their assets doing? How much money is in their commerce, if they have a commerce? Where's the merchandise? How much were the sales this week? How much did you buy this week? How much did you spend in order to make your purchase or make your sale? How much did you spend on lunch when you went to the market? Or how much did you pay to have someone help you transport your beans from this spot to this spot? Try and help them learn to analyze their income and their expenses. Then, the last thing we do at these visits is we have a series of 10 health issues that we require them to master. It is a kind of education that we do that in a way is the least Shimerian education you can imagine. We require them to memorize certain messages. For example, the importance of vitamin A and where to find it in your diet. For example, the damage that is done to a woman and her family when she has children too young. The damage done to a woman when she has too many children. The importance of balancing a diet. So there are 10 messages that we require them to learn, and we treat them as things that on the one hand they need to understand, but on the other hand they have to simply remember. So that's what happens in these half-hour visits, and they go on for 18 months. So the fourth thing we do, one of the things I said is that teaching someone to fish will not solve her problems if her health isn't good enough for her to go fishing. And one of the things that we discover is a lot of the families that fall into absolute poverty or extreme poverty end up that way because someone in the family got sick. You were the one that read, your name's Joan? Jan, sorry. You were the one that read about the woman whose husband became paralyzed, and as a consequence, her business that was starting to move along a little bit was drained of all its assets. She had to keep spending just to keep him alive. It's very common. So she gets sick, or someone in her family gets sick, and they're done for. So we have a partnership with the healthcare provider that allows all of our member families to get free health care. And we make a lot of effort not only to give them a card that allows them to go and claim their free health care, but to help them use it. Because we have, if you simply put a free care card in their hands, the fact that they've never accessed health care before means that they're not going to use it anyway. So we insist that they go. We take them. We sit in the hospital with them until they get care. There's a lot of education around ensuring that they make use of health care, but the bottom line is that they have to have access and it has to be free. Or there's no way that they'll ever get themselves out of poverty. So that's 4. Classroom training, what we call asset transfer, where we actually give them the stuff they'll need. Long-term accompaniment, and the access to health care. The 5th critical thing is that for the first 6 months of their participation in the program, we give them a small cash stipend every week. The reason for that is that, just as I said, some families are so poor that if you lend them money, that money is going to disappear because they're going to need to feed their kids. By the same token, you give someone small commerce, what's going to happen to the money in that small commerce for a woman who has no way to feed her kids? She's going to drain it right away. You give someone 3 goats and her children are starving, she's going to liquidate those goats. So for the first 6 months of the program, they get a very small cash stipend every week just to help them protect their assets until the assets start earning them income. Because assets don't earn you income the first day they're in your hands. Or they don't earn you very much anyway. Commerce is a little bit quicker than the others. But a goat has a, maybe you would buy one, we would find one that's already pregnant, but it's, I think it's about 5 months that a goat takes to actually have a kid, or 2, however many they have. And then the kids have to grow up before you actually have any shot at any kind of income. So it takes a while. So we give them 6 months of a cash stipend. All right, could we have number 4?
My name is Jacqueline. My husband and I live in Bridgerton, small village in Massacre. The little shack we live in now is not our original house. We used to have a larger thatched hut, but it burned down. Our first child was an infant at the time, and he was caught in the fire. We lost him. Our second house was washed away in a hurricane. So now we live in a little ajupa. It has 2 walls made of layers of dried corn stalks that lean on each other. The back wall is made of more corn stalks. We share it with 3 of our kids. Our oldest boy lives in Port-au-Prince with a family that took him for us. We hope they're sending him to school, but we haven't heard. The 3 other kids spend their nights down the hill in my mother-in-law's hut because the rain soaks them through if they're on the floor at the ajupa. We'd like to send our children to school, but we can't afford to. We have little farmland, but this year we couldn't afford to buy seeds. We can make about $1 for a day's work now and again when our neighbor needs help in the field. Then we wait until he can pay us. We also watch his goat. It just gave birth, but it had only 1 kid left. Only 1 kid. If it had 2, 1 would be ours. Now we'll just have to wait for another pregnancy.
Thanks. Right. I have 3 sort of loose ends I need to just tie up in order to finish. There are 3 things I didn't know quite where to fit them into the program. The first involves our organizing community support participation for this program. The second involves the transition out of this program when the women are ready to finish it. And the third is just a short note about, a special note about Shimer's participation in the program. So, the first is community participation. One thing that is clear to us is that sending someone into a community 1 day a week for a short period isn't enough. Things happen 7 days a week. And it doesn't help to be only a phone call away when a woman is too poor to have a phone, or when she lives in a region that's remote enough that there's not even a phone signal. So we discovered that it's extremely important to have people on the ground in every community that we work in all the time. Not only that, but the situations that the women we work with find themselves in are complicated. And the fact that even I'm the only non-Haitian on the staff, but the Haitians on the staff are nevertheless foreigners in the communities we're working in. So they might not even be from far away, but generally speaking, they're not from the villages where we're actually working. So they lack a lot of background information about the relationship, interpersonal relationships within each community that are really key to helping see through some of the more perplexing difficulties. So in every village where we work, we've set up something called a Poverty Assistance Committee. I'll tell you how we set it up first, and then exactly what it does. When we first meet with the individual women who are going to be part of this program, we ask each of them whom they go to in their village if they have a serious problem that they can't solve on their own. So who do you talk to if you need help? Who might give you some help? Who might at least won't make you feel ashamed if they can't give you some help? Who do you talk to? And we make a short list of these people and we invite them to a meeting. And what we say to them is this: you are already working to alleviate poverty in your community. If you weren't, these women that we've invited into our program wouldn't have suggested you to us. But what we want to do is help you organize a formal structure that will make your work more effective. And we arrange for them to form a poverty committee with something like 11 members, and they elect a president, treasurer, a secretary, and they're there in the community all the time to help women through some of the problems that they face. What kinds of problems? So I'm in a remote community, and it's clear I need some kind of medical care, but of course if I need medical care, then going to which isn't close by is not an easy matter. It's not as though I can call an ambulance. There are no roads in my community. I'm not feeling well, so I can't hike 2 or 3 hours to the nearest clinic. I need to have some other way to get there. And so one of these wealthier people who's in a poverty assistance committee will lend me a horse or a mule or a donkey, some kind of transportation. Or I have goats now, but it's not something I'm really used to. And because of my irresponsibility or my lack of experience, my goats get out. Now, if goats get into gardens, they make a mess of them. And so the gardeners, the farmers in my neighborhood, who see my goat in their garden, might have all kinds of reaction. It's not unusual for a farmer to behead a goat that he finds in his field. It's just not that unusual. The nicer response is to catch them and make someone pay a fine. But if I'm mad, if I'm the farmer and I'm mad, I might just behead it. Especially if it's a goat that belongs to someone extremely poor, it doesn't really matter to me. So our Poverty Assistance Committee members take responsibility for educating other members of the community that they need to help protect these goats, that they are entitled to take them and ask for a fine, but they shouldn't kill them. And at the same time, they keep after our members to keep their goats tied up. Because we tell our members every time we go to see them, keep your goat tied up. And they generally are tied up the day that our case managers make their visit. But for the other 6 days, it's catch as cat can. So you have extra eyes on the ground. You have people that can negotiate community conflicts from a basis of long community knowledge. And you have people that are just willing to be generally supportive. Important component. So that's the first thing I said I would talk about. The next thing I said I would talk about is transition. So this program is 18 months long. And after that, we celebrate a graduation. But there are a couple things that it's worth asking about that graduation, worth saying about it. First of all, what's the basic criteria for graduation? Now, there are a long list of particular things that we look for. But the basic question is this. If the family that we're evaluating is able now, absent any future support, to support themselves, then they qualify for graduation. If we believe they continue to need aid, they do not qualify. The remarkable fact about this program is that thus far in Haiti, which is one of the most difficult environments in the world, our graduation rate has been 96%. So almost everyone graduates. Tomorrow there's a graduation. I'm sorry I'm missing it, for almost 100 women, and for the first time we're going to have 100% graduation. No one missed out. I wish I could take credit, but the guys' names are Emile and Pascal. And there are pictures of Pascal there, but in any case, very, very successful program. But what do you want them to do when they graduate? Well, we want them to continue to make progress. The fact that they've graduated does not mean that they're rich, or even that they're middle class. They're still really poor. But what they can do now, that they have the basic ability to support themselves, is use credit. So we help them transition into microcredit to continue to build their economic base. Now, that's not to say we force them or even pressure them to join credit programs, which would be easy for us to do because we're a microcredit institution. And the temptation is always there. You know, we think, what do they say? If what you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So we think we have this magnificent all-purpose poverty reduction tool. And so it's very tempting to us to say, oh, you have to get into credit now. We don't do that. It turns out that about 50% will choose to go into credit right away. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And 80 or 90% will eventually choose to go into credit, but not right away. But what matters to us is that they have income enough on a stable basis that their children eat at least 2 meals a day, that all the children are in school, and that they have a vision for how to move forward in their lives. Those are maybe the 3 most important things. So I said I would talk about community participation, graduation, and the final thing is Shimer's participation. Well, there's not that much to be said about that. I've been astonished, and grateful isn't even the word, astonished at Shimer's willingness to let me be there. You know, in Haiti now, I've been almost full-time since January 2005. That's, you know, I'm in my 7th year. I had 1 semester during that stretch where I was here, and Shimer's been tolerant and continued to consider me part of the community. I don't think there are other schools that would easily be true of. Whenever I tell someone about that, I get a wow of some sort. And but this summer we have an exciting thing happening, which is that one of Landis, who applied for whatever the internship that Shimer makes available each summer, will be using it to work with me in Haiti. So in this program, and so it'll be a chance for us to sort of further our shared learning. So I think that's all I want to say without shutting up. I would love to talk with you all. So if you have questions or comments, please have at it. I know there's a lot that I didn't talk about, and knowing what your interest and curiosity is would help me speak appropriately, I hope. Thanks.
I don't know what you call them, the people who you enlist in the community who are already
The committee members?
the committee members.
Yes.
What does that relationship look like? I mean, is there a usual or?
The relationship between the institution and the committee member, or the committee member and the
in the community,
the
particular people.
program, the members. We call what other NGOs typically call beneficiaries. Fonds is a membership organization. It's owned by the 50,000 women who have loans. And so, by extension, we also call the people involved in this extreme poverty program, though they don't have loans yet and haven't paid a membership fee, we also call them members. So do you mean the relationship between the committee members and the what we call the CLM members, or the relationship between the committee members and the institution?
The relationship between the committee members and the not beneficiaries, but
Like the other-
the members.
Yes.
But also between the committee member and the community at large. I mean, I feel like that's something that I don't know if you can regulate a whole lot, and I just wonder what it usually looks like.
You can't regulate it. One of the realities of a country like Haiti, that is where government is a little bit minimalist, is that especially in rural areas, organic structures of authority develop. So by being wealthier and being assertive, I become a community leader with no officially authorized authority, but with authority that sort of adheres to me by custom. And so many of these people are people that are already sort of bossing people around in their community, or elders. You know, sometimes a lot of times they're old, particularly older men, whom people have become used to asking for advice or mediation help in conflicts. It's a very organic thing, but they're people that wield authority long before they ever become members of our committee. Some of them have positions that are quasi-authority positions. Like occasionally, one of the people that will be proposed to us is a local elected official or a school principal. So that happens. But generally, these are people that folks in their community listen to already. And that's part of what helps them become effective committee members for us. Does that address what you're wondering about?
Yeah, I just, it seems like all of the steps at least attempt a very Freirian and cooperative with the people attitude. And I'm just wondering what these committee members are told, or how they're met with, and if they usually share that spirit.
We meet with them once a month. In every community where we're active, one of the 11 members of the committee is the case manager, so our staff member. 2 of them are actually the women who are members of the program, and the other 9 are people, you know, that are appointed from the community at large. And generally, the sort of president and lead members of this committee are bossy and authoritarian. That's just the reality. They're facing, along with their colleagues on the committee, real problems, and they manage them, you know, the best that they can. There's only so much training we can offer, or we want to invest in for that part of the program. We have to be very careful with our expenses. One of the interesting things about our program in Haiti is that in Bangladesh, the 2-year cycle that removes someone from a family from extreme poverty costs less than $400. In Haiti, it costs about $1,500 because of the terrain, because of the lack of government services, because of the lack of infrastructure, because of the way the near presence of the United States affects pricing in Haiti. So for a lot of reasons, Haiti is a very expensive environment. Now you might think, well, okay, $1,500 isn't that much when you think of a 2-year cycle to remove a whole family from extreme poverty. But here's the problem. Almost all of our income is based on large grants from major foundations. And most of them don't particularly have a Haiti agenda. So you know, I'm the grant manager for the MasterCard Foundation, which is our biggest donor right now. And I can, you know, with my X million, you know, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, I can invest that in Bangladesh, where I get a family for every $350, or I can invest that in Haiti, where I get a family for every $1,500. You know, even if we get angry and resentful about the sort of corporate feel of that, there's a very, it's a real issue. I want to help as many people as I can. So why wouldn't I put my money where it's most effective? So we're always arguing with foundations that Haiti deserves a look despite the expense. So investing in a lot of extra training, preparation for those groups, it just doesn't make sense for us. So we take them as they are. Generally, we hope that the fact that the women say, oh yes, Jean is this person I go to when I have a problem, he's always very nice. Generally, we take that as a hopeful sign.
Speaking of those committee members, how do I wonder in these towns, both before and especially like after you guys get involved, how are like property judicial disputes resolved? Is with lots of new capital coming in, you know, the goat herders and the farmers arguing about things and the fines and so forth.
It varies. There are official structures, justices of the peace, along with people that are, it's called a marshal, who is a remote assistant with a sort of a deputy, you know, some unpaid person who is deputized by a local authority to act in usually his absence. And so there are people with responsibility for mediating conflicts. You know, there are conflicts that are resolved the old-fashioned way. You know, people fight. There are land disputes that go into courts. One of the things we try to do, you know, some of our case managers or social workers are trained lawyers. And that's important to us because these extra poor people, one of the things that keeps them so poor is that they have no habit or capacity to defend themselves. So we will send a case manager as their lawyer. We will argue for them. If they're in the wrong, we won't defend them, but we will go and ensure that the procedures used against them are all correct. So, I don't think I'm giving you a good answer, but there's just such a wide range of things. I mean, the reality is, a lot of the areas that we work are very far from anything that you'd call a town. And so by far the most effective and common way to resolve something is simply talking it through until you can come to some kind of more or less amicable resolution of the conflict.
That's what I was picturing, I guess. I mean, it's good to know that there's a legal infrastructure they can turn to if they want to hike 3 miles or 3 hours. So,
Yeah.
Well, just what would you say is the biggest hindrance or resistance or problem in carrying out this work? Or you can pluralize that. I'm just wondering, what are you up against besides the problem itself?
Well, some of these places we go to are really hard to get to. So, my particular part of the territory is in the mountains above an area called, a mountainous part of a rural county called Bukankare. And almost half of the families that I'm responsible for, so about 100 and a little over 100, 40% of the families I serve, are in an area where for me to get there, I take my motorcycle about an hour and a half out of our base. I park it at this nice woman's house, and I hike about 4.5 hours up to where my team and I have rented a room. And from that room, we have members that we serve that are another as much as 2.5 hours farther into the mountains. And so, in a way, the biggest thing is just the distance. There are other big things. There are areas where we're about to move into an area where, all the areas that we work with have problems with safe water. We're about to move into an area where there's very little water at all. And so we're having to create infrastructures that allow our work to happen, whether it's a water infrastructure or a transportation infrastructure. We move around the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Probably everyone knows that. The next poorest country, I think right now, is Nicaragua, where the per capita GDP is about a little more than twice Haiti's. I mean, Haiti's not just the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, it's an order of magnitude poorer than any other country near us. And we move around that that country with large amounts of cash in our backpacks. It's a little bit of a security issue. It's not as though we can add the staffing that would provide bona fide security, because, okay, maybe you do send every case manager with 2 armed guards. If you had that money to spend, what kind of security would that provide? 3 people can be ambushed too. So we just send these men and women into the field with thousands of dollars in Haitian currency in their backpack.
This is exactly what I told my parents.
So far, no, you will not be going into the field with thousands of dollars in your backpack. I guarantee that. I promise you.
You can't trust them.
So there's that. Acquiring assets. So there's no place the original pilot of our program was for 150 families, 3 different parts of Haiti. When Fonkwase decided to scale it up, they decided they really needed to choose one place, because managing 3 different corners of the country was just impossible. So we chose one area of Haiti. We had enough funds for about 1,100 families, from 150 to 1,100, big jump. And 700 of those families approximately chose, for example, goats as one of their assets. They wanted to raise goats. So we needed, 1,800 young, fertile female goats. Now, there's no place that you can just call. You could Walmart and place your order for 1,800 young, fertile female goats. You have to go into the markets every day and buy 5, buy 10. And so acquiring the assets to transfer them to these women has been a huge problem. Then, my favorite problem is just the simple matter of teaching our case managers, our staff to do the job correctly. Because this is not an experimental program. We know what works. that they have to be creative and smart as problem solvers, while at the same time having the discipline to follow a series of steps correctly. Now those two things don't always go very well together. And so ongoing staff training and monitoring is a real challenge. I'm responsible for 5 case managers. By the end of this month, I'm going to be responsible for either 3 or 4 more. And I have to spend almost all of my time just helping them do their job right, learning to do their job right. Big challenge.
Do you encounter resistances or apathy either from outside parties or from the clients, for one, I don't know what you prefer to call them, themselves? Do you, are the people who are against this program?
Yep,
or
we call them members. It's fairly new. They didn't have it in the pilot. In the pilot, each case manager had 25 members he or she was responsible for. They visited them at least twice a week. And so the tightness of the relationship that it was possible to establish quickly really made a difference. We don't have that right now. We can only see them about once a week. And all kinds of funny things happen. One of the most interesting is that, as you can imagine, a lot of people who are not selected for this program start to see their neighbors getting free goats and chickens, and there's a lot of jealousy. And some of it, you know, I don't want to trivialize it, some of it is there's meanness involved. People who just want a free lunch and are mad when someone else gets one. Some of it is the reality that people who are slightly too well off to really deserve this program still have very, very hard lives and have understandable frustrations. So one of the things that's been happening a lot, especially in a couple of my territories, is you have significant groups of community members not only speaking badly of the program, but trying to convince the people who are selected for the program not to join. Trying to convince them that there are very dangerous and improper things that are going to happen. And a lot of the things that they tell to our members, I mean, I almost don't want to repeat them because outside the Haitian context, I don't want to make things sound ridiculous. It takes a lot of getting used to really, some of the things that are said there, it takes some getting used to. So for example, we have members who have told us that they're worried that they've heard that they were going to take their husbands away and give them new husbands. A woman told me this, that she had heard that I was going to take away her husband and give her a new one. And she said, but you know, I've kind of gotten used to the one that I have, so if you're going to do that, I don't want to be part of the program. So, you know, imagine someone saying that and not thinking that it's ridiculous. You know, this is something that she was worried about, worried enough to say to me, and that, you know, I don't want to be a part of this program if you're going to replace my husband. Another one. One of the things that we do is we help all these women. I didn't give all the services we provide. One of the things we do is we help them construct one safe and dry space for them to sleep in. So we give them a small amount of cement, a small amount of tin roofing material, and some money to pay an artisan who can build them a 9 square meter house. 9 square meters is not big, so something like this, maybe these 3 front rows, and a little bigger than that, and you know, Marie Guédillon, Marie Guédillon, who has 7 kids and a husband, and 9 of them will be in there. And we have bigger families than that. But just someplace where they won't be rained on. So they've been saying that, you know, we give them a key to this new house. We don't actually even give them a door, you know, if that's their problem. But they've been hearing that we will give them a key and keep a key. And so people choose not to join the program for that reason. That's a couple of examples. Those are a couple of examples of things that people say to the women to try and convince them not to join the program. There's another kind of problem where you have husbands who start to see that this is an opportunity for their wife or partner to develop a kind of independence. And so they will simply forbid her from being part of the program. And we have a number of cases like that, where husbands simply block it, with or without violence. We've seen both. We have women that have been abused, beaten up, and taken out of the program by husbands. There's only so much we can do about it right now. But we also have women that have dumped their husband since the start of the program, you know, in December. You know, the guy was no good. And now I have my own goats, so what he can take a hike.
Yeah.
You know, we have some of that. So yeah, there are various kinds of problems like that come up, various versions, and it's something we're fighting with all the time. As these internal community committees take real root, the long term, they're one of the solutions, because you have to download it from your staff and really get popular support for what you're doing. And we don't really have it yet. We're starting to develop it. Yeah. Does that help?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
This is more about kind of not this particular program, but just kind of microcredit in general and the work that you do. Because a lot of the critiques that I've read of it is that it can cause a lot of dependency on institutions and kind of microcredit in terms of having to repay the loans and things like that. And I guess I'm curious more in terms of long term, if you see these kind of programs as helping to sort of eradicate the kind of forces that allow these people to get into such levels of poverty. If you see these kind of programs as helping to work to that end.
Sure. I mean, someone that has a flourishing business generating for her a substantial income, someone who, you know, especially in a country like Haiti, where you don't have much in the way of Social Security, someone who is thus enabled to send her children to school, advance them much farther than she was able to go, you know, she has a chance for making a shift that will last for generations within her family. Fonds Causé has a substantial investment in internal research, and we have a lot of data that shows the improvement made in the way our members live over the course of a number of loan cycles. This is, you know, shifting into the mode where we're talking about credit. Now, there's a lot of stuff back and forth, confusing stuff, in a general way about how effective microcredit actually is. And the problem is that the headlines are simple, and the issues are not. So one of the things that's happening is that as what were originally not-for-profits showed that they could generate a certain amount of income from loans to the extreme poor, investors saw an opportunity, right? And so they became interested in how maybe they could generate income by doing the same thing. Not only that, But the not-for-profits who were worried that they didn't feel like they had the resources to sustain growing lending over the long term, actually encouraged it. You know, yeah, invest some money and we'll see that you make some money back. So a for-profit microfinance sector has increasingly become a major part of the activity worldwide. Now, once you have a distinct for-profit, the bottom line is that the interest is the investors. The institution is there for the investors. And so there have been instances where institutions are feeling pressured to do a lot of extra lending. Women end up borrowing much more than they should, with all kinds of bad results. I mean, that's a very long conversation. I'd be happy to have it. I'm working on a paper for publication about that issue right now. But the key is to recognize the subtlety of the issue and try and get more and more explicit, rather than just jumping into a debate where, you know, on the one hand you have people that were saying, well, microfinance is the answer to everything, and other people that are saying, well, we caught you. Because these women, you know, this or that woman is being screwed over. Or this or that 1,000 women are being screwed, or 1 million women are being screwed over. You know, is it more?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Is the choice to why does Fonds Jose strictly work with women?
Okay, great question. A couple of different answers that are, in a way, completely independent of each other. The type of micro lending that Fonds Jose does mainly is called solidarity group lending. It's the basic, we call it Grameen style lending too, because it was the format discovered by Dr. Yunus, Professor Yunus, that is what got him his Nobel Prize. Groups of 5 women take a loan together. The reason is that for the most part these loans are unsecured. You know, normally you go out and take a loan, there's some kind of collateral involved. Whether you're putting up the collateral or there's a government guarantee, as there is for, you know, some student loans, most loans need to be secured. A lender is not going to just say, okay, here's your $20,000, here's your schedule, see you once a month for the next 10 years. That's not how it works. On the other hand, the women that microfinance was designed to serve have no collateral. So what you do is you get them to borrow in groups of 5, have them make a deposit into your institution that is a small percentage of their loan, but make the 5 of them essentially co-sign for one another. So if we're in a group together, this is a group, Albert will make us 5, we're a group of 5 borrowers. I get sick, so I am at risk of missing a payment. The institution you all have agreed to help me out. And so that removes the risk from the institution, or softens the institution's risks, and allows it to make more of a loan. Now, the reason I go into that long explanation is that there's a lot of data that shows that solidarity works as a loan guarantee for women. It simply doesn't work for men. Men don't pay back. That's just a fact. I cannot explain that fact. I'm kind of glad I can't. I'm not sure I want to know why men don't pay back, because there are things about men I'd rather not know. But men don't pay back, women do. So that's one thing. The other thing is just sort of the obvious issue of sexism. Fonds knows, and other institutions know as well, that one of the major causes of poverty is the fact that women do not have independent sources of income. One of the major causes of poverty is that women do not have independent sources of income. Our program in particular, that gets the poorest women, is filled with cases where something like this happens. Marie, when she's young, has a couple of kids with a guy. He wanders off. And so she has these kids. She's not a landowner because most of the land is in the hands of men. She hasn't any experience earning income. So she finds another guy. And they shack up together. She has a third kid with him. And then he goes off. Now she has 3 kids. She looks for that third guy who's going to help her with her 3 kids. He already has 2 kids. His wife died, left him with 2 kids. They have another kid, that makes 6 in her household if I'm counting right, and he goes off. Now she has 6 kids. Now that whole cycle starts from the fact that Marie never had a way to support herself. So her one option, or the one option she perceived for herself to make sure that whatever kids were in her hands could eat, was to find some guy. And it kept leading to more and more children. So the only way to break that cycle, the minimum thing you have to do to break that cycle is give Marie a way to feed her kids without depending on the guy. Then, though there are other problems that you have to solve, one part of what forces her into the cycle of poverty is broken. So those are the 2 reasons the 2 main reasons.
Do you, the women in groups and a lot of this reminds me of Islamic lending circles, which is a bit different. Do you ever find that after people have graduated and Fonds is taking steps back from a community, that people that are successful continue operating together?
Yeah, I need to be more specific about this. When these women graduate, Fonds does not step back from the community. The CLM program, the Extreme Poverty Program, leaves the community.
Okay.
Our challenge is to ensure that Fonds' credit team continues to be available. So the women will continue to meet. The ideal model is that the women who were once members of the Extreme Poverty Program become established as what's called a credit center, which is just an association of women who take loans together. The loans are in groups of 5 women, and so you have 6 to 8 of them that form a center that take their loans and pay their reimbursements at scheduled meetings. And so those centers are how Fonds continues to support a community. Now, in the pilot, we were only moderately successful in maintaining Fonds' presence because one of the areas where we were working was so remote that the Fonds office wasn't willing or able to get credit agents in there after the Extreme Poverty team left. This time around, we have a much closer relationship with the Fonds credit team, and so we're not going to let that happen again.
So what is Fonds' vision for, an indefinite future, or do they ever plan to pull out, or do they intend to have?
One of Fonds' fundamental principles is that it will be there as long as there are Haitians in Haiti. we have something, I wonder if I can find it. We have something we call a ladder out of poverty that involves our thoughts about how financial services, I'm sorry, I have a lot of garbage on this machine. Not all of it is garbage, but a certain amount of it is. Let me see if I can find it. That spelling is not going to help. Okay. I'd rather show you something, but it's going to take too much time for me to go through the laptop. That's a wedding picture. That's a wedding picture. That's Dr. Joe, that's my doctor. So, Fonds Jose has a series, as I said, it's a poverty alleviation agency. It has a series of approaches tailored to different levels of poverty. The lowest level of poverty, or the highest level of poverty, depending on how you look at it, the people that are poorest need our program, which is CLM, Chemin La Vie Meilleure, Pathway to a Better Life. We don't think we can give you a better life, but we can show you the path to a better life and walk along that path with you. After that, there's a program for people that are marginally better off. It's called T-Credit, or Little Credit. Loans start at $25 for 1 month and go up to little less than 3 times that for 3 months, and are given in groups. The groups meet every week, and they get intensive training as to how to manage their loans and how to manage their businesses. It's a 6-month program. It's kind of for people on the threshold to readiness for real credit. Then we have Standard Solidarity Group Credit, where the loans start at about 75 US and move up to 50,000 goods is about 1,250. They're 6-month loans. Women borrows $1,250 for 6 months. And at that point, they're women that have pretty substantial businesses. Then you can graduate from that out of group loans into individual loans. The minimum individual loan is $1,250 US, but the sky's the limit. And we have women that have started with as little as, say, $60 US as their first loan, who are now borrowing 10, 15, 20,000 US on an individual basis to run major businesses. So we don't think that our job is to pull out, but our job is to keep accompanying them as they grow. Now eventually they'll outgrow Fonds Jose as well, and there are other institutions in Haiti that give much bigger loans.
When you say major business, what are you talking about? Can you give some examples?
Almost all Fonds Jose, the women that borrow from Fonds Jose, have the same business in a sense. They buy something here and they sell it there. There's not a lot of what's usually called productive stuff. But a woman who might start buying, here's an example. I know some women from southern Haiti. I met them once. They started, when they started, they would buy a sack of beans in the market and then sell it by the cup. So buy large and sell small. They did that for lots of years, go to the different rural markets in the Jeremy area, and they built up their businesses. At the point that I met them, they were ready to start borrowing, they were taking their first individual loans, which were going to be for about, they had started with loans of 1,500 goods. The good is about 40 goods to the dollar. So 1,500 goods is a little less than $40. They were ready to take loans of 75,000 goods. But their business had changed. Instead of buying one sack and selling it retail, they were now going into all the markets in rural Jeremy, which is in southern Haiti, and buying sack after sack after sack, bringing them to downtown Jeremy, which is a rural port, and then taking the sacks by boat to Port-au-Prince and selling them to wholesalers in Port-au-Prince. So they had shifted from being little retail merchants to being major agents of distribution, to being the middle people for a major part of one sector of the Haitian economy. That's an example.
Do they have like the usual trappings of major businesses in the sense of legal status, trademark?
It varies. We do not require that. We don't require it. We encourage it. And the agents that manage the portfolio of individual loans have a lot of training in helping women negotiate that process if they choose to. Because we want them to feel like they can be legal in every way, official in every way, documented in every way. But we don't require it.
I wanted to get an idea of the trajectory from extreme poverty to major business.
Yeah, we have women that fly to Panama, which is a place where you can buy a very inexpensive Chinese stuff, clothes, dishes, housewares. They go with dollars to Panama, buy a lot of cheap junk made in China, and bring it back with them to Haiti and sell it to wholesalers mostly. So that's another example. I know women that, a lot of them made different versions of the jump from retailer to wholesaler as a part of their road upward. Started hiring staff. I met a woman in Gonaive who had started, whose business is cooking charcoal, cooking fuel. And she went from, buying a couple of sacks and selling them retail, by the little bag or bowl full, enough to have, cook one meal in various local markets, to buying truckloads of sacks in one of the rural areas that's most productive and bringing them to the city, Gonaive, where she lives. So a lot of the more successful ones are making that kind of shift.
Have any of them started focusing on supplying Foncote with the goats that they want to distribute?
We have started to buy from our members.
Right.
It would be great. This MasterCard grant I was part of the team working on writing it before the earthquake. And one component of the original version of the grant was going to be that this Bangladeshi organization, BRAC, which is has a worldwide reputation for scaling up its programs. They know how to make something small into something big. So they were going to take graduates from a rural, Haiti's one rural agronomy school, and train them to create sort of the mass production of goats that we would then buy directly from. So they were going to create the business for some people, allowing them to create, you know, a business of their own that would then already have a customer locked in. So it would have solved our problem and helped others. When the earthquake, you know, that university, you know, nothing of it remained. At this point, they're doing a little bit of teaching in tents. But the buildings were all the buildings were completely flat. And so that part of the grant disappeared. So we've thought about it, but right now it's very catch as catch can. I'll have like a senior case manager who is responsible for women that are further along in the process tell me that he has, you know, Mary, Sue, and Jane who each have 2 goats that I could buy. For my case managers that are just acquiring assets for their people, you know, but that is 3 or 4 goats. I need 400. Yeah. It's not a big piece of our work yet.
Looked around, see if anybody. But I mean, how much of difference do you think you're making? Do you have relevant statistics, like for example, members versus total population, or total female population, or poverty rates, or something?
That's a very, very interesting question. One of the things that the original funder of the pilot called for is control group research, where you take a number of people whose characteristics roughly match the people who are going to benefit from this program, and you track them along with the people whom you're working with. When we really looked at what that would mean, we felt it would be immoral. We couldn't stomach having ongoing research contact with women whose families were as badly off as the women we were working with, but we wouldn't be doing anything for them. It seemed wrong. And so we have no perfect data like that. What we can talk about is the percentage of families that are self-supporting now who previously had nothing. We have baseline data about what their lives were like before the program, and we have extensive data about what their lives are like now. And 96% of the families that are through this program are self-supporting after 18 months.
In numbers, how many is that? How many families?
Okay, so the original pilot was 150 families in Haiti. Since there were a couple of years where we were at sort of a maintenance level, where, you know, every year we were enrolling another 100. So there have been another 100 to 200 that have graduated since then. And we've sustained that 96-97% graduation rate for those. The dramatic scale-up started in June, where we got funding for 1,000 families. You know, so by December, we had 1,100 families in the program, new families. And we now have, we got funding for another 550 families, and we're starting the cycle of selecting the team that's going to serve them, and then we'll start selecting the families themselves. So we'll be up to about 1,650. Now obviously I can't give you data yet on that next magnitude.
What's the population of Haiti?
I think it's about 10 million now. A little over 50% is said to live on less than $1 a day. Most of these families are living on much less than 50%. So you heard about the 2 women who collect this guan and have an income therefore of about $4 a week, and one of them is a household of 11, the other is a household of 9. So you can do the math. It's a lot less than $1 a day per person. They're very badly off. And I can't tell you how many Haitian families there are like that. We originally felt that we would need to do 5,000 families just to serve the one department or province of Haiti where we decided to set up shop. It looks now like it's going to be 10 or 15,000 just for that one province.
Because of the earthquake?
Partly because of the earthquake, partly because the continually deteriorating economy in Haiti, partly because of misestimates. You know, people are coming. There are a lot more very poor people there than anyone imagined. And but one of the things I want to say is that we've never felt it was our mission to eliminate extreme poverty in Haiti. We've been very careful. Our mission is to prove that you can eliminate it. So we're taking one area of the country and we're saying we're going to eradicate extreme poverty in that one area. So it can be done. It's a choice. You know, you by spending enough money, by working hard, this is it. We choose to let these people live the way they do. We choose that because we don't have to. We can make another kind of choice and create ways to help them help themselves. That's the reality.
What kind of impact has that had on the larger communities as a whole? Have they benefited from having neighbors with this new capital of commerce?
Not enough evidence to really talk about that yet. On the other hand, BRAC, you know, I say that they're the experts in scale-up. I can make that more meaningful. We're up to about, we'll be up to 1,650. They're up to about 400,000. So, you know, within Bangladesh, which is like 165 million, which is a lot bigger than Haiti, they're huge. And microfinance has a 30 or 40-year history there. And the results are clear. Bangladesh is not an economically destitute country anymore. If you go there, it feels like an economically, it's not a rich country. Economically, it's very, very vibrant. There's a lot going on. Manufacture, small trading, agriculture, very economically vibrant. So you see impacts have been pretty serious.
You would even say that microfinance is main?
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, when you consider, BRAC has about 7 million borrowers. Grameen has about 7 million. Asha has another 4 or 5 million. So it's huge there. And those are just the 3 biggest. I can talk about this stuff forever. And that's probably not a great idea for anyone. So there are snacks in the back. They don't belong to me, so I probably shouldn't be the one inviting anyone to eat them. You know, we can maybe continue informally. And so thank you all for coming.